We've all heard the rumours, right? Scandinavia is a hellishly expensive place to live and work. I mean, if you've listened to some of the stories, I would totally not judge you for thinking that you need to take out an entire mortgage just to go out for dinner here. And you can totally kiss goodbye to any chance of going away for a night, because staying in a hotel here is an absolute no-go. Not to mention the theory that every Swede loves throwing away their salary at the end of the month. They can't wait to give it over to the state in tax. Is this beginning to sound a little bit familiar? Well, I wouldn't judge you if it is, because let's be honest, we've all heard the stereotypes, and it's no mystery that it's created this impression that Scandinavia is the most expensive place in the world. But what if I was to tell you that might not actually be the case? And before we get too deep into this video, you guys, I don't want you to misunderstand me. I'm not about to say that Sweden should be your next budget holiday destination for a cheap weekend with your mates. If you're looking for cheap beer, this is not the place to be. If you're looking for a cheap holiday with the family, also better options available. But that said, there are two sides to every coin, and whilst there are things here in Sweden that can be quite expensive, and we've talked about them on this channel before, there's also a whole bunch of things that when you get here, you'll be surprised how cheap they are. And I'm under no illusion that I've probably lost some of my international viewers out there by this point, because you're thinking, wait a second, I came to Sweden, I went to Stockholm as a tourist, and it cost me a small fortune. And now you want me to believe that things are cheaper there? Well, just bear in mind for a second that today we're talking about what it's like to live and work in the country. And all I want to get to the bottom of is the fact that there's lots of things that maybe aren't as dear or as expensive as you first thought. So many, in fact, that I've got 5 of them to present to you today. 5 of the things that when I arrived here in Sweden surprised me about how little they sent me back in my wallet. Are you ready to get into this? Let's get started. And the most relatable place to start this video, of course, is with lunch, because I mean, we all gotta eat, right? And this one is one of those many times that Sweden sets itself apart to where I'm from in the UK, because here in Sweden, if you're out and about during the working week and you're looking for some lunch, you can basically pop into any restaurant that you like, because all of them will have some sort of lunch deal going on. You can usually get either a buffet or a set menu, as well as a coffee, a drink, and maybe even some fika, all for a set price, and it probably won't set you back more than about 120 or 130 crowns. And don't get me wrong, I'm not for 1 second trying to suggest that that is super cheap. All I'm saying is that when you look at how much value you get for your money, it's actually quite impressive really, because especially if you're getting a buffet menu where you can go back and forward as many times as you like, and then you're getting this dessert or fika as well, and your coffee and your drink, that's a lot of value for 120 or 130 crowns. Where I'm from back in the UK, I could pay like 70 or 80 crowns just to get a salad, and that's not going to fill me up for very long, is it? And it doesn't stop there, you guys, because here in Sweden, often your workplace will also contribute towards making sure that you are fed and happy during the working day. In fact, at a previous job that I was at here in Sweden, we got given these lunch cards that looked a bit like credit cards, but were just intended to be spent on your daily lunch. And you could go out and buy lunch wherever the hell you liked, and the company were paying for it. So you put this very small contribution yourself in, and they topped it up about 3 or 4 times the amount that you put in yourself. And that was intended to make sure that you were fed and watered and happy all throughout the working day. And that was by no means unique to my previous company, because I know lots of people that have got similar arrangements here in Sweden. It's not something I've got anymore, but I really thought it was super cool to experience and to see. It's never something I'd heard of in England before, for example. I'd love to know what it's like in the countries you guys are from, so let me know down in the comments below. So I guess all I'm saying is that you can expect to spend a pretty penny here in Sweden for your lunch, but the amount of value and the amount of substance you get for that money is quite comparable to lots of other places in the world, if not better in some cases. And when you're ready to start working off all of those extra calories that you've been piling on at the lunch buffet, don't worry, because Sweden is here to help with that too. Yes, because the second thing that we're going to be talking about in today's video is sport, because here in Sweden, we talked about it before, sport is a big deal. It's a big part of lots of people's lives, probably more so here than in lots of different countries around the world. But did you know that in most cases, sport can be quite accessible here? And the reason for that, or so I'm told, is that if you look at any of the local sports organisations here in Sweden, they tend to be affiliated in some way with their national federations and with their professional leagues. And that's relevant here because if you look at any professional league organisation here in Sweden, at least 51% of that organisation has to be owned in some way by its members. Only up to 49% can be owned by other commercial prospects, and the reason for that is to make sure that most of the money that is generated by the organisation goes back into the sport. So you see what's happening here. The professional leagues earn the money, the organisations collect all of this wealth that they then get to put right back into the grassroots sports again, instead of just putting it into into the pockets of their investors. And as I'm sure you can see, what that means is that money that's earned right at the top of the sport trickles all the way back down again to the grassroots. It's a way of making sure that local sports organisations get the support they need. It comes out in the forms of concessions and subsidies to help make sure that that sport is as available and accessible to the local population as possible. And in that way, sport could not be easier to find here. There are so many different sports clubs and leagues supported all the way through by the state or by the professional organisations, which help to make sure that you can get involved. And it doesn't stop just there either, because there are plenty of employers all over the country giving their employees what is known here as a friskvårdsbidrag. And what that basically translates to is like a healthcare benefit, which is designed somewhere between the state and employers, and it basically helps to make sure that the employee is given some money that they can use every single year towards their healthcare and taking care of themselves and looking after their lifestyles. The third thing on my list today of the things that are way cheaper here in Sweden, at least from my experience, is childcare. And this feels like another example of where the Swedish are just doing it right. There's some sort of arrangement in place here where the state actually subsidises your childcare. What I mean by that is that they say you can only pay by law up to 3% of your annual salary, your gross annual salary, in childcare. And if that 3% equates to more than 1,300 crowns, or about £113, then you don't have to pay any more than that. That is the most you can be paying for childcare per month. And as I've understood it, this is available regardless of your income or situation. It's designed to make sure that childcare is available to everybody in the country that needs it. And again, it's a massive example of where Sweden have done something that makes it a lot cheaper here for childcare than it would be in other parts of the world. I mean, take where I'm from in the UK, for example, people pay hundreds and hundreds of pounds every month in childcare. It is actually ridiculous when you look at how much they're paying. I understand there's a lot of responsibility to look after that child, but it's becoming unaffordable for parents. And I'm sure they would benefit from something similar as they've got here in Sweden to make sure that regardless of whether you're a high or low earner, you can take advantage of making sure your child gets the care and attention they need while you get back on with your job and back on with your career. And when that child that we were just talking about grows up sufficiently that they want to start studying and begin their adult life, Sweden has got you sorted there as well. It's the fourth thing on my list today of things that are cheaper here in Sweden, and it's education. Yes, my friends, the rumours are true. State-funded institutions here in Sweden are not allowed to charge any fees. It's the same reason why, for example, SFE is free to all immigrants to come to the country. They are not allowed to charge for that service, and as a result, it's the same when it comes to tertiary education or that university level education that you get here in Sweden. It's grant aided, so you can get money towards helping you actually survive while you're at uni and cover your accommodation subsistence costs, for example, but they're not allowed to charge for the actual tuition. That has to be free to all domestic residents. And I couldn't really finish this video without talking about public transport, because let me tell you what, it tends to be a lot more affordable here in Sweden than at least it is in the UK. If you look at, for example, commuter trains or boat trips, you don't expect to spend very much here in Sweden at all. Sure, the trains in general, if you're talking about just travelling from one end of the country to the other, tend to be quite expensive, and the price tends to go up the longer you leave it based on demand and availability. That's not the same when you look at the local commuter trains. So if you're commuting for work, maybe to Stockholm, or you want to go between two of the local cities, you don't expect to pay that much, because they have all sorts of subsidies in place to make sure that that is reasonable and accountable. And there's even a lot of different ticket options available depending on your demographic group. So I was surprised, for example, to find out when I first moved here to Sweden as a 24-year-old that somehow I still classed as a youth ticket on my local train and bus provider in the region that I live in. And that came as a big shock to me, because that means I'm paying the same fare that I would have been if I was 17 years old, even though I'm now like 5, 6, 7 years older than that. And all the way up until 26, I could benefit from that entitlement. Totally different to how we do it in the UK. I used to spend an absolute mint on just trying to get to work every day. In fact, it used to cost me more to travel up to London to work than it did to fly between London and Sweden to come and visit my girlfriend. And that's just astonishing to me. So I guess that all I'm saying is that if you've heard that Sweden is this super expensive place to live, it's worth thinking again and coming and experiencing it for yourself, because it's actually not as bad as you've heard. And don't get me wrong, there's lots of things that are more expensive here than in other countries. I actually did a whole video about that already on my channel. I'll leave the link down below. But actually there's lots of instances where it's not as expensive as you've heard. I'm sure there's plenty more I could have spoken about that I didn't get time for in this video either. If you have those and you would like to share those with us, do that down in the comment section below. What else here in Sweden is not as expensive as you would expect? And then I'd just like to say thank you so much for watching another one of my videos. I really appreciate it. Weekly content on my channel at the minute. I really hope you're enjoying this. I love all of the input that I get from you guys. We have such a good discussion down below. So please continue with that. Keep that up. If you're new to the crew, subscribe if you haven't already, and then drop me a like to let me know that you liked this video and you want more content like this in the future. Until we see each other again, I just want to say thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys soon. Take care and have a great day. Bye, guys.